You might think a legal text that's thousands of years old would be, well, pretty dry and irrelevant. But what if I told you it's actually a blueprint for how a society tried to answer a question we are still struggling with today? How do we build a community that's fair and just? We're about to dive into Numbers 15, and I promise you, the answers they came up with are absolutely fascinating.
At the very heart of this ancient chapter is a question that our own legal systems wrestle with every single day. Does your intention matter? Is making an honest mistake the same thing as deliberately defying the rules? Well, this text doesn't mess around. It draws a really sharp line in the sand, and exploring that line tells us a ton about their vision for a just world.
So, here's how we're going to break this all down. First, we'll look at the baseline rules for everyone. Then we'll get into the two big categories of wrongdoing, the honest mistakes versus the acts of open defiance. We're even going to see a pretty dramatic case study that shows just how high the stakes were, and we'll finish up with a surprisingly clever tool they designed to help people stay on the right track.
Okay, so first things first. Any system of justice needs to start with a clear standard, right? And that's where this chapter begins, by laying out the rules for different ritual offerings. Now, this might sound like just religious stuff, but it's so much more than that. This was about creating a shared social language, a set of expectations that would hold the entire community together. And the level of detail here is just wow. It honestly reads like a set of recipes. If you bring a lamb, you need exactly this much flour, this much oil, and this much wine. A bigger animal, like a bullock, the amounts go up, but they're just as precise. So why be so specific? It's simple, really. It gets rid of any confusion. Everybody knew exactly what was expected of them. No guesswork.
And all of this leads to a really powerful statement, especially for that time. The text makes it crystal clear. These rules, these precise standards, they apply to everyone. It didn't matter if you were born an Israelite or if you were a foreigner living with them. One law for all. That was the foundational principle.
Okay, so the standard is set. Now the legal philosophy gets really interesting. It starts by dealing with something we can all relate to, just making a mistake. The law actually makes a specific space for the fact that sometimes people break a rule without meaning to, maybe without even realizing they did anything wrong.
They call this a sin through ignorance. So think of it as a screw-up, a misstep, not some evil, malicious act. And this isn't just a small detail. The whole legal system really hinges on this distinction between an unintentional mistake and a willful crime.
And here's the crucial part. For these unintentional sins, there was always a path back, a way to make things right. And the fix was designed to be manageable. If the whole community messed up, they made a community offering. If it was just one person, a smaller offering was enough. The goal wasn't just punishment, it was atonement, forgiveness, and repairing the relationship with the community.
But just as the text provides a path for forgiveness, it takes a really sharp, severe turn. It introduces a totally different kind of offense, one that was treated with the absolute most seriousness. This is what's called the presumptuous sin, an act not of ignorance, but of open, high-handed defiance.
And you can see the difference right there in the language. On one side, you have sinning through ignorance. On the other, you have acting presumptuously. See, this isn't about two different actions. It's about two totally different mindsets. It's all about intent. It's about consciously and deliberately challenging the whole system. The text describes this in the strongest terms imaginable, acting presumptuously as a direct insult to the lawgiver. It's not just about breaking one rule. It's an act of contempt for the very authority that set up all the rules. It's seen as a direct attack on the foundation of their entire society.
And for that kind of act, the consequence is absolute. There's no offering, no path to forgiveness. That person is to be utterly cut off from the community. We're talking total excommunication, a permanent removal. Because from their perspective, that act of defiance was a threat to the survival of the whole community.
Now, this isn't just left as some abstract legal theory. No, the text immediately gives us a stark, real-world case study to show us exactly what this law looked like in practice. So the scene is pretty simple. The Israelites are in the wilderness, and they find a man gathering sticks on the Sabbath. Now, this was a known, serious violation of one of their most important commandments, and he was doing it out in the open for everyone to see.
But what happens next is fascinating. The community doesn't just react in the moment, they detain the man. Why? Because, as the text says, the specific punishment hadn't been declared yet.
There's this moment of legal uncertainty, a pause to make sure they get it right. When the judgment does come, it's unmistakable. The man must be put to death. But notice the method. The entire congregation is supposed to participate. This is so important. It turns the punishment into a powerful communal act. It's the whole society reaffirming a law they believed was essential for their very survival.
And so, the sentence is carried out. This is a grim ending, for sure, but it's not just a story. It's the ultimate, visceral example of what the text means by a presumptuous sin and the absolute, final consequence that came with it.
After that intense story, the chapter shifts gears one last time, and it's a brilliant move. It goes from punishment to prevention. I mean, if the laws are this important, how do you help people remember them all? Well, the text gives them a really practical psychological tool.
The people are commanded to attach these special fringes with a noticeable blue cord to the corners of their clothing. Now, this had nothing to do with fashion. Think of it as a mandated, wearable reminder system, a piece of ancient technology for your brain.
And the purpose was just beautifully simple. The idea was you'd constantly see these fringes on your clothes. That visual cue would make you remember the commandments. Remembering would push you to actually follow them. And the ultimate goal? To live a life that was aligned with the community's most important principles.
And this is where you see the psychological genius of this law. The fringe is explicitly designed to be an external check on our internal impulses. It's a physical tool to interrupt that habit of just following your own heart and your own eyes wherever they might lead. It's basically an ancient form of cognitive behavioral therapy woven right into your clothes.
So, let's wrap this up. What are the big takeaways from this ancient guide to justice? Well, first, intent is everything. It's the line between a forgivable mistake and an act of defiance. Second, justice demands one law for everybody. Third, open defiance of the system has ultimate consequences. And finally, and maybe most cleverly, a good legal system isn't just about punishment, it's about prevention. It's about giving people tools to help them remember what matters most.
And that leaves us with a really fascinating thought. This ancient society literally built a physical object into daily life as a constant moral reminder. In our world, a world that is jam-packed with digital pings and alerts for everything except our principles, what are the fringes that we create for ourselves? What systems do we build to make sure we don't forget the things we claim to believe in? It's really the timeless challenge, isn't it? Bridging that gap between knowing what's right and actually doing it.